dear God, I learned the hard way to never log out of the launcher, and like, because if you forget your password, oh my God, you got to solve like 3 captchas, and it's like, is this a bicycle? Is that's a motorcycle? Does that classify? That's a crosswalk, or is that a street paint line? Like, it's dude, it's awful. It's awful. And if you mess up once, you mess up once. I think you get 2 attempts, you get locked out for an hour. An hour. Why? So. Welcome to ScavTalk, Escape from Tarkov Podcast with a continued focus on development of the game, patch note analysis, theory crafting, and general gameplay discussions. My name is Church. I'm one of your hosts. I am a video editor for a Tarkov YouTuber named Airwing Marine.
And I'm GigaBeef, a Tarkov YouTuber helping you guys get better at the game. And welcome back to the show again for another week, Mr. Church. How has your week been going in EFT land?
It has been going good. I've been doing lots of questing. I think, what was it, Wednesday? I did like a really big gaming session.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a really big gaming session, like a little dangerous of a gaming session. But
Oh dear.
yeah, so that's kind of nice, you know. Kind of felt like needed that time. But yeah, man, just been grinding. I'm at like 49.0 out of 50 for Sniper 5, and I can be rid of all the Mosins that have come back in
Like,
insurance for me loading them and
gosh,
ditching
that
them.
quest. That quest.
It's
It's
everyone's
absurd.
favorite, yeah.
What level are
And
you up to now?
40. I think
Okay.
last week I was either like 36 or 38, but yeah, I just like grinded. I'm kind of at the point now where almost everything left is on like reserve, a few like quest keys for reserve, and shooter born on woods, but I want to do Tarkov shooter up to level 8 and kind of like try to combine the two, and everything else is on lighthouse. So I the few I gotta do for Jaeger is the flashbang one. I already have one
Okay.
done, and I'm a little upset because I didn't realize until last night that the stun grenades, the new ones, do not work.
They don't, really?
They don't, because
I thought they did.
well, see, I thought so too, and I was using them. So as soon as I got that quest, I'm like, okay, from now on, I'm gonna run these new grenades, and I don't know how many raids I did that, and I was like, oh, I guess I didn't flash them because I didn't get credit for it. You know, I guess it was like some weird angle, like it didn't flash them or whatever.
Yeah.
But I do remember occasionally I started switching to back to Zarya's, because the Zaryas have a 2-second timer to the 1.5, and I found that the 1.5 is like just not enough sometimes. You know, the Zarya, the
Mm.
extra distance, you can like reach the target. So I had 1 out of 2, and I went last night. I was like, okay, I've been doing a lot of factory because like the Zabralo quest, and I got another fun story about that, but maybe I won't go too long here. So, anyways, yeah, I'm on factory. I bring the new stun grenades, and I flash this guy like dead on, and he's clearly flashed, and I kill him, and I'm like, what? Like, did it bug again? Like, what's going on? So I'll say soft confirmation they don't work. I looked on the wiki. The wiki doesn't list them. I don't know, but I just feel like I
Yeah.
would have. I've had I've had a lot of anecdotal situations where that guy was flashed and I didn't get the kill, but it could have been a weird bug, like, you know, maybe the angle. But I'm convinced. I'm convinced. So word of
Yeah, it's
advice:
interesting.
avoid those.
I was just kind of looking it up in the background as you were speaking, and it says the Zarya stun grenade and the Zvezda flashbang round can both be used to cause the stun effect, which I don't know whether that's updated or not, right? As you're saying, that doesn't list the new one.
Yes, and the thing I'm wondering is if we take a look at grenades real quick. I don't know what this one's is called. Is it? Let's see.
I mean, it's probably the easiest way is probably just to find it through the Flea, I would imagine.
Model 7290 flashbang grenade.
Right.
So And it says on the wiki the type is stun grenade. So like it and the quest description that it's like you have to stun them. Like it seems like it would add up that it should work. Like it's the exact same thing, but I'm convinced it's not working. So Nikita, please fix.
Interesting. Well, have you filed your bug report, Church? Have you filed the
I
bug
have
report about it
not.
not working? Well,
Okay,
absolutely get on and do that.
let me ask you a legitimate question. How do you file a bug report for this?
What do you mean?
So, in my experience, I've had very poor experiences of trying to file bug reports.
Yeah.
I submit the bug report. I put in the text. I don't think included a video, but it like downloads your logs and it sends them, and then you
Mhm.
get an error because way back
Oh.
in the day, my game was crashing, and so I'm like, okay, I'm filing a bug report, but I got error messages. Some typical pooping on Battleset games. Oh, I get a bug, and now I get a bug for you know what I mean. So I've pretty much just relegated my bug reporting to Veritas. I'm sorry, Veritas. I know you're probably like, God, this guy again. He's because I've sent them stuff like exploits and whatnot, but it just
Mhm.
I'm going a bit of a rant. And I had an opportunity once to work as an intern, I'll say, for a game developer, a mod
Right.
developer for Dota 2, right? And I didn't do any coding. Okay, let me get that straight. I he tried to teach me some things in Lua, and he was like, "Oh yeah, you can go learn your own." I'm just like, "Good God, this language is so complicated. What the heck, dude? I can't." So I mostly did data entry stuff and inputs on a few things. But anyways, one of the things he implemented was an in-game bug reporting feature, and
Mhm.
when he did that, talking to him, he was like, "Wow, the work I put in here was so worth it because the volume of reports he got just like dramatically increased." And for him, it was simpler because I guess the user experience was better because you didn't have to go to the website to report the bug. You could do it in game, and also with I guess the integration with Steam and whatnot, it could easily like fetch the logs. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyways, long story short, why is there not a bug report feature in the game, dude?
I
You know how
agree. I
easy it would be?
agree.
Like, dude, it would be so much easier for the user. And it to me, it just seems like the easiest thing to do. I don't now, granted, it doesn't help you if the game crashes, right? You know, if the only option was to report in the game and the game crashes, how do you report the bug? You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
So I'm saying we could have the best of both worlds. You could have the launcher reporter and then the in-game reporter. And to me, the in-game reporter is just far superior, man, far superior. But
I
maybe they
agree.
don't.
It is quite annoying to have to close the game to report the bug, especially if it's something like you're in the middle of playing. You're like, well, I want to play another raid really, but I should report this bug. We have to close the game down, write the thing, and then send it off, and then open it back up again. Yeah, I mean, mine actually used to have an error, but it works these days, and it's been a while since I had that error. But every time I send something off, and then support always comes back and says, "Oh, can you send us a video of, put something as unlisted on YouTube and send it to us?" They always say that.
Okay.
So that's usually the way it works. You say, okay, look, this in this raid it didn't work, and here's the video, and the guy was stunned, but I didn't get the quest, whatever. So that's how I would do it. But I 100% agree with you that it should be in game for at least reporting of just general things. Like I reported about, and they came back and said that it was fine about like the turn rate on one of the Gen 4s, but because they said, oh well, it's got groin protection, so it means you turn slow. I was like, okay, fair enough, fine. But like that didn't need me to close the game to go and report that thing. So I agree with you on that point. I do agree with you. So I mean, chat's saying that the new stun grenade did work for them. So it's all seems a bit of a mess.
Hmm,
I will do
interesting.
exactly as I did. I haven't actually gone onto this yet because last time I did it with the KS23 with the flash rounds because it's way easier. And this time they're locked behind a million levels of traders, so I just never really bothered. And they're a bit of a pain to get a hold of. And the star rounds are a bit of a pain to get a hold of. You need to craft them in the hideout, and you can only get 7. I don't think you can buy them until you finish the quest. Maybe I can't remember where they're locked, but
Hmm.
when I last looked, I couldn't buy them, and I had to craft them 7 at a time using a very expensive craft, which it's probably fair enough because they are quite annoying. So if you want to get access to them, you can, but you have to spend some time, resources, opportunity cost, whatever to get them. So that's what I'll do. I've since the KS-23 existed, I've never done that with flashbang grenades because it's such a pain. Because
Difficult.
even the 1.5 timer, it's just awful. And especially now that grenades are way,
Yes,
way, way worse.
that's the problem running into. It's like you have to pull out the grenade, re-peek them, throw the grenade, run up to them. Whereas before you could just literally spam them into being permanently blind. So now I think
Yeah.
the strategy is you lag like a pistoling. Because I was going in like Omega kitted, like Alton and big boy armor that I had, and yeah, it's like yeah, it's kind of weird. I hate the cheesiness, dude. It's just like
I
because it's
know.
like all these pistolings shooting at me. I should just tank all the bullets and just shoot them in the leg and then take my time and flash them. I don't know. Sorry, I cut you off there because I was like, dude, that you're absolutely right. It is so much more difficult now that you just can't spam tactical
Yeah.
flashes.
It absolutely is. So KS is going to be the way that I'm going to do it. I don't know whether you just
Yeah,
dislike doing it the KS way, but you only need to do 2, and the pain's
so many
limited. And
reasons.
it's once you can get the KS with the barter and make some flashes, then it's not too bad. Um, yeah. So I mean, for I think where did we leave off from my gameplay? I think I was getting beaten viciously, brutally, and had kind of taken a mini pause. I
Mhm.
restarted again after our last podcast and continued to get viciously beaten by Tarkov, the game, to the point at which actually I've made a new entry into my video ideas log, which is what to do when you're getting absolutely destroyed, which is, it's something that's a potential because I'm in
Yeah,
that process right now of trying to pull myself right back into my comfort zone, use things that are, and at one point I just had to completely stop questing entirely. A lot of this started with trying to finish Punisher 6, and for some reason I'm just unable to either find anybody with the SVD, or when I do, I just get shot in the head, and it's been very, very frustrating. So I got 2 out of the 12, and I actually stopped completely doing the SVD quest because it was annoying me so much, and then I had to go and do other things, and ended up completely ceasing all questing entirely to go back to factory and run around with fun guns and do some shotgun runs and some other silly stuff. I put a few. I could have put a lot more in the Discord channel. Let me be honest with you, but I had to restrain myself. I needed to vent a little bit, but I didn't want the entire Discord general section to be me moaning over and over and over again with screenshots and videos of me dying continuously, because I was this close to just wall
it's
of
funny.
texting that entire Discord group. But fortunately, I managed to hold myself off and only do a little bit. So I was focusing on that. Since then, things have got a bit better. I feel more confident back in factory using some of the guns that I've been enjoying. 153, which is always fun. Testing out Magnum, Flechette, going back to the MP7. A surprising one that I did end up using a little bit, which is quite fun. It's surprisingly fun. Is the Kedda B, the suppressed Kedda that you get for 35k. It's actually really hilarious. I've had some really good success with it, and because it's so short, you just feel really nimble and speedy in factory because there's so many enclosed spaces that I've found
Yeah,
do make a gun like the 153 feel a little bit cumbersome.
yeah,
Whereas and that's one of the reasons why pistols feel so good on that map. But the Kedda B also feels great and is suppressed and is like a BB gun. It's got very little recoil when you're hip firing it, which is really funny. And I had a 3 PMC kill rate on that just randomly out of the blue. Fought somebody else and they had actual armor on, so I couldn't kill them. But I was darting around, they couldn't kill me. So I actually really enjoyed that. That was kind of cool. So I might revisit that at some point. And
were you
yeah, I made it
using
to.
leg meta ammo, or were just whatever you could fill in there?
I was using, so I kind of went in the middle. I used the RG028, which is 65 damage and has 13 pen. So I think it's the 4th top for pen. You can't use one of them anyway. The good one, I believe.
Yeah,
I can't remember which one. Is
PBM
it PBM? Yeah, you can't use that anyway.
or
But that's got really
PBB.
low damage. I
Mhm.
can't remember which one it is specifically. But the RG has got 65 damage, which is actually quite a lot for where it is in that particular thing. But I was just shooting people in the head, really. I was trying
Okay.
to shoot people in the head, and it was fun. It was actually good fun. So since then, been able to slowly broaden out a little bit. Went back to doing some questing, and a lot of those on interchange and skulking around trying to get some things done. I did actually get some good stuff done. So we're on the up again. We're on the up. Exactly. So not like, there's a few bits and pieces of news. There's not a great deal, but
Hmm.
they're sporadic and scattered. I think the most interesting one probably is the foul buff or the SA58 buff.
Oh yeah.
Nikita on Twitter, he's been posting out, so how about thee? And then some topic, which I think is a great way to start off the conversation. But
I
anyway,
love it.
he posted one up saying, so what about the SA58? And everyone said, well, the problem is there's just better choices. It has zero ergonomics. You can't really use the full auto unless you mod it out fully. If you mod it out fully, it's nearly half a mil. So why would you use that over really anything else with that
Yeah,
caliber? And so they buffed the recoil a bit. I don't think it's insane. I mean, this thing is not going to be the new meta, but it brings it slightly closer. I think that's good to
sure.
slowly hammer it back into place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm. It reminds me a little bit of the VSS, which I was going to try a little bit, but I ended up, it was in my death period, so I didn't actually get to really shoot the gun. But I was tempted to try and use it on semi because it is actually kind of equivalent. It's got very good pen and it's got very good damage. So at short ranges, at least, it's kind of equivalent to using an M1A or an RFB SR25, something like that. It's not, it's in that same category if you're using it on semi-auto, and then the 20 round mags are actually not an issue either. So I was thinking about doing that, but I didn't really get to shoot when I tried it. I did see Deadly Slob had a video of him using it, and it looked like it was working quite well. I think the one thing to say about that, I mean, there's been no changes really to that weapon, but full auto on it feels completely scuffed, and that's why
Yeah,
I sort of made an analogy with the SA58 because it's in that same ballpark of it's been destroyed by nerfs in the past, but the ammo
right.
is really good for it, and I think there might be a place for that in terms of single fire 20 rounder type, not DMR, but the great thing about the Valon and the VSS this wipe is because of the ballistics got changed. Remember when we were analyzing the various charts? Well, because gravity got reduced by 3 times, it affected those the most. So they actually have much straighter paths, way more straight paths than they used to, compared to other weapons that already had kind of straight paths, but because they had quite fast bullets, you couldn't tell as much. But with those, it really made a radical difference. So I think that's helped a lot with them. But anyway, there's one to potentially try. So the SA58, not the best ever, but it's much closer now to some of the other weapons. I think I haven't used it myself, but I think it's closer now to the Scar H and some of those other guns
Was it
in terms of performance.
just the recoil change, or are they changing ergonomics? I don't remember.
I think it was the Rico one that I was mainly looking at. I think they might have changed Ergo as well a little bit, but I don't remember
I want to
off the top of my head.
say that
Do you
they
think they
did.
changed Ergo too?
Well, I want to say that they didn't because, like, for me, the only viable build for the old FAL, not the juice cannon version, but the before they buffed it, was just go maximum recoil and just screw ergo. But I think
Yeah.
now that since it got a recoil reduction, you can put more ergo friendly parts on there and have it like
Oh, I see.
yeah. So I think that's maybe
I see
what
where you're
I'm
coming from.
thinking. Yeah, I think that's maybe what I'm thinking of. But I'm looking here. I don't believe it says that it was changed. Just the recoil, not the ergo.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
But yeah, what you're saying is correct. You can now use something else rather than the RK2, which is just the destroyer of all ergonomics on weapons, but is now not necessary so that it's actually fireable.
right. You could get the same maximum recoil that you could previously. So let's say the best recoil was like 80 or something. You could get that now and get more ergo.
Yeah.
Like actually have ergonomics, not have zero ergo. But funny enough, I have used it and I still just feel like zero ergo is the way to go. I mean, I think you get like 28 or like 32 depending on what parts you use, but if you slap the meta suppressor on, it's just like yeah, you're at zero pretty well much. Like
Yeah.
and then it's also like further, let's say you use those one mags that have like high ergo rating. It's like a full auto that's in 20 20 rounders. Why not? And it's SA58, it's really long. It's not amazing recoil. Why not just use the 308 MDR? But you don't have
Yeah.
access to the MDR. unless you got unlocked from Peacekeeper level 4, I think. So maybe there's, I don't know. It's a weird gun, but as you were saying, I'm glad that they are knocking it back into a more competitive state because I really dislike when things get nerfed to the ground and they just stay like that for eternity. And it's nothing against BSG. It just in general, that's something that I don't like because it just means that effectively you might as well just take the gun to whatever it is out of the game if it's
Yeah,
you know getting been
exactly.
nerfed to the grave.
There was one issue with the SA58, I think, in general, which makes it quite difficult to use. You don't get people scaling into that weapon. You're either using it fully modded or not at all. And that's partly, I
Yes,
looked at it as a really cheap, trying to buy it, because buying broken ones from the Flea is really inexpensive. They're about 30k because you
really.
can't really do very much with them. Now, yes, the malfunction stuff is bad and annoying, but if you're using it as a semi-auto DMR, then it's not really as much of an issue. Yes, you might have it occasionally, but if you're far away, I was thinking of a compelling, or trying to think of a compelling reason why you might want to use one. But the problem is that there are not enough parts that allow you to use the things you would want to use, like an actual optic with rings. You have to have that, what's it called? Something, X duty. The X duty
Yeah,
receiver
right.
cover. Otherwise, it doesn't. You just can't put anything on it. You could put small red dots onto the handrail, but I,
Yes.
for one, don't really like that very much. And secondly, you're then in CQB, so you don't really want to be having malfunctions then, or using it in. But you could use it in semi, I suppose. But then the recoil's still really high. There's just it doesn't really fit. I did try. I had a look and tried to make it work, but it's because of that lack of modular ability at a low level that means it doesn't work properly. It's the main reason why the AK is so good early because you just have the Bastion and you can fit everything on that. It's amazing. Whereas the SA58 doesn't have something equivalent with various rails and attachment points that you can add scopes to. It doesn't work as a DMR like that early on.
Yeah, I feel like there's multiple things because definitely as you're saying, that's a huge deal, being able to put that rear sight like having a good optics, a huge upgrade, going from irons to that. That's like maybe like your first thing you want to look at when you're modding a gun. The other issue is that the way the systems are set up, because everything's additive, I think I'm saying that right. When you're talking about reducing recoil, so if you
Yeah.
do like 5% and then 5% on the stock, 5% on the grip, 5% on the muzzle, it's cumulative, correct?
It is, and it is additive. Yeah, exactly.
So it's you're not if you get a part that reduces 20% recoil, it's like you're not getting the full value compared to the fully kitted out part because it has like a 80% from all these other different parts that get it to this lowest value. And the gun's base is already like really high. Like, God, what is it at actually? Now I'm curious. So I'll just look it up real quick. Maybe it's F and FAL, not the SA58. Because I want to see the
Are you
big
trying
boy
to get to the
one.
preset?
Yes. Just the standard stock, if you have it on your and I was trying to do the wiki.
I always find the presets are just tricky and annoying,
You don't
especially if you try
say.
and go through the game itself. I mean, the easiest way I'd usually go to find it on the Flea first, and then try and go from there. But I mean, yeah. So this is a stock one on the Flea. It does actually have the comp on it, and that's 162, which is pretty high. And if you its starting recoil, the base recoil for the calculations is 325. So it's extremely high.
325? Is
That's just
that
the lower.
the
That's just the lower. That's the lower with
Oh,
nothing
okay.
else on it. So that's like the comparable recoil for attachments to do their work on. But yeah, it's about 180 if you have even the longest barrel and the stock compensator.
And this is the thing for me, if the system was because essentially what they're fighting is like if okay, we're gonna buff the SA58, we're gonna lower the base, right? Um, yeah, maybe yeah. So we're gonna lower the base. So instead of like 325, it's 250, let's say.
Mhm.
Well, it like kind of helps those like low level mods, but it really helps the when you stack everything on there. So it's like they can't really go that route because then it makes the high end omega good. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
do.
like
It's
I
it's the
wish
yeah. Sorry. You go, you go.
I wish and I hope that they change it to a multiplicative system because it's across the board, it's more balanced whether you know you're when you go through level 1 mods, level 2 mods, level 3 mods, you don't have that effect where when you stack everything up, it has this dramatic effect because it is additive instead of it's you essentially get less when you start stacking all these mods up, you're getting less value per mod. So I guess what I'm saying is having it turn on its head where
Yeah.
when you slap these like very low end mods, you get a lot of value, but as you go up the tiers, right, to the best in slot stuff, it's still good, but it's not like this insane you get less than you would previously. And it's kinda like how skills work currently. You know, level 10 strength compared to level 1, yeah, it's, you know, whatever, 10 I don't know, 2 points difference in move speed. But level 51, not only is it like 10 points difference in move speed, you also get this insane perk where, you know, nothing weighs anything in your backpack and gear and stuff like this. You're just like, yeah, I'm 13 kilos with my raid backpack and my slick and my Alton helmet, my, SA-58. Yeah, what's up, bro? That's kind of how I see this system also working similarly is once you put everything on there, compared to the guy that just puts like one little mod, it's just like the difference is a little too off. It just there's never like the MD, I know I'm going on a long rant. The MDR kind of suffers from the same thing. It's like, yeah, you could put just a few little mods here and there, but they really don't do much. And even when you fully kit it out, it doesn't do all that much. But it's still better than putting these two little mods because you're talking like in some cases, what 20 rubles difference, or sorry, 2,000 rubles difference. Like I don't know. The whole
Yeah.
system irritates me a little bit.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's that kind of scaling into rather than it being diminishing returns, it's almost the
Yes.
other way around where it
Yes.
gets better, right? The simplest way to express it, in my opinion,
Uh-huh.
is to look at the extreme scenario where you have a weapon and it has 100 recoil and you add
Okay.
5 attachments and they all have 20% recoil reduction. It takes the recoil of the gun to 0, precisely to naught. And you have to be careful about balancing and making sure that these things don't end up taking you down to a stupid level because you've got a system in there where if you suddenly add a new meta attachment that's 30% in there, you're ending up at some negative number or something, which is really silly. Whereas if it worked the other way instead, where it was 20% for each component,
Mhm.
then that would reduce the recoil by 63%.
Right.
Because it's zero point 0.8 times zero point 0.8 times zero point 0.8 times zero point 0.5 times, rather than it just going minus 20, minus 20, minus 20 to 0. And so that way makes more sense. So it means that the last few mods don't do as much. It means that you could then actually increase the recoil reduction for all attachments, and then they would do more at the beginning. Because that's if you just implemented this system, it's like any system. If you implemented this system just as is, then you'd nerf recoil attachments mostly at the meta end, but across the board, and that would be it. Recoil would be worse across the board. So you'd need
Yes.
to then tune up everything,
2 things at once. Yeah.
yeah, to then rebalance it so that now the stuff at the top end is now no longer, for our grips we've got 0 to 5% or something. You'd take them from 0 to 8 maybe,
Right.
and compensators rather than being 8 to 20% depending on the gun, you'd take it, they'd be up 15 to 30% or whatever, because you wouldn't be able to slam them all together and make something that gets down to near 0. I think it's a fundamental problem. It's the reason why you end up with these meta kits that are like laser beams. It's all the
Yeah.
reason why this has always been like this.
Yeah. Absolutely. And what really
Yeah.
bugs me is that talking about the SA-58, I've tried to make a short barrel work, but you trade so much recoil for just a few points in ergo. Like I'm talking maybe like 10. Like I'll pull up the parts here so we can be accurate. But it's like why yeah, it's and that's the other I think we've talked about this before, but that's sort of the other fault of the other side of the system is the ergo is just a flat value, a flat number. Anytime you're adding ergo, you're not adding a percentage on top of the base. Like if the base is 34, you're adding 1 point. So on the other side of the spectrum, anything where it's like the gun has really high ergo, like the AK-103 and even the AK, or you can add a lot of ergo
Mm.
parts, you can really crank up these attachments that have negative ergo but give a lot of recoil. So it's like almost a no-brainer to the as to what mod you should use. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Exactly. I think with the some of the things they need to do, or I think that they should do at least, is
Mhm.
with magazines, no one ever used to use the tiny magazines. And incrementally over time, they've been adding ergonomics to the various magazines that are really small. And there's still a niche, there's still a niche take. So people you do see people using ADARs with 10 rounders and that kind of thing because you can get a lot of ergonomics quite quickly from using those small magazines. I was looking very recently at the VPO 209 again. I'm doing a bit of work on that at the moment.
Uh-huh.
And the regular AK from Prapor is -4 ergo. And you know the bait 30 rounder, which is actually only 10? The one that you
Yeah.
get from, I think it's from Skier at the
Yeah, I know you're
beginning, and
talking
everyone's, oh,
yeah.
look at this 30 rounder, and then you buy
Yeah.
it and it only fits 10 rounds in it because it's like blanked off at the bottom. Well, because there's two 10 rounder mags. There's one which is the tiny one, which is actually a tiny little box with sawn off, which is 10 rounds. And that
Mhm.
one gives you, I think, 4 ergonomics, but it gives you much faster check mag and load speed. The other one, which is an actual 30, but it's blanked off inside, gives you 7 ergonomics, but you don't get the check and load speed bonuses because it's, I don't know, because it's bigger, I guess, or it's some balancing thing. The interesting point about that, though, is you basically get an 11 ergonomic swing to go from a 30 round AK mag to a 10 round little
Yes.
thing. So if you're using it like a DMR or something, 11
Yes.
ergonomics is,
That's
it's
pretty big.
it's quite big, and
Yeah.
that's what needs to happen, in my opinion, to the SA58 is the long barrel. They can keep it as the ergo it's at the moment. That's fine, but I think the short barrels, the ergo needs to go way higher. It needs to go way higher. You need to get a lot more benefit from using
Yeah,
these
I
shorter
think
barrels. I don't think it gives you anywhere near enough.
yeah, I agree. That's also been a thought I've had as well. As like sort of just a quick fix, a quick turn of the knob they could do to sort of help out with that. So a bit of a quiz for you here. Would you like to take a stab at what the SA58 21-inch barrel stats are in terms of recoil and ergonomics? You had to guess. Well, you have
21-inch
to.
barrel
So
stats. I mean, I actually don't really know, but I'm going to guess that it is -12% recoil. And which way is that going to go for ergonomic? It must be down, right? I think it's only going to be -10 ergo or something.
so
I'm probably
it's
completely off.
for recoil, it's -8 recoil reduction.
Okay.
I guess I don't know if that's how you read that correctly, but in ergonomics, it's -28 ergo.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Right.
That's
Now
much larger.
that sounds like a lot, right? So now the 11-inch barrel, right, is the shortest barrel you can put on the SA58. What do you think its stats are?
But that's going to be something like -3% recoil. And but
Mhm.
then the ergo isn't going to be much better. It's because that's what matters. It's the relative change. It's probably going to be -16 or something.
So recoil is -2% recoil reduction,
Mhm.
and ergo is drumroll, -8.
Okay. Okay. So not as bad as I thought,
Now,
but
right, this is where it gets interesting, right? So we take the base of the recoil, right, which is 325, right? And assuming I did my math right, what that means is if you take just the receiver of the SA58 and it has 325 recoil and you add the long barrel, it goes from 325 to 299. Okay. That's effectively what, 25, 26 points difference?
Something like that, yeah.
Quick maths. I think it's 26. 325 minus 299. Gotta be,
Yeah,
right?
and that's
So
26. Yes.
now the short one, you go from 325 to 318.5, which is 3 carry the 2, 12.5 recoil reduction.
It's much smaller.
Yeah. So you're trading. So just typing the numbers out here. What did I say? 12. No, wait. That should be
It's 26 and 6. I've just got in because this is driving me crazy. You go 325 minus 26, 325 minus 6. Because the game tells you, so I just went to find out directly.
-6. So you're
Mhm.
you're you're losing. This is crazy, right? From the base, you're losing 8 recoil. Sorry, you're losing 8 ergonomics, and you're only gaining 6% recoil from the shorter barrel. You're literally giving up 8 ergo to get 6 recoil. The other one, you're gonna give up, what is it, 28? What do we say? 28 recoil, and you're gonna gain 26 points in recoil reduction, like effective points, not percentage.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
yeah.
you're like, I don't know. To me, it just seems like the shorter barrel is just objectively worse. There's no way, like just from purely looking at the numbers just don't add up,
And then
right?
I can't remember whether this is the case for this, but oftentimes on the shorter barrels, you then can't use the longer handguards, which are normally the meta ones. So there's an actual extra effect there. But I can't remember if that's the case with this. It probably is, but
Yes,
I don't
that's a good
remember.
point. Because you're using the shorter barrels, you have less options typically for the handguards. And usually the shorter handguards, the only thing they do is give you ergo. They don't they sometimes they give you some recoil reduction, but they only give you ergo. So you're
Usually,
like
yeah.
you're double, it's like the effect compounds. You get even worse recoil. So it's like, why it's so hard to justify a short gun because in reality, the only thing that you're really giving up, or I guess I should say the only thing that you're gaining is potentially not bumping into objects in the world if you're gun, right? That's something.
Mhm.
And a few points in ergo. Like we're talking, like yeah, you can ADS faster and hold your uh gun to your shoulder longer, but you have a shorter barrel. So it's like you're not gonna be sniping with a shorter barrel. Like it doesn't add up. It doesn't add up. So
Yeah.
that's my rant about ergo and recoil. I wish the system was different because if they could change the meta where short guns where they still would penalize you, you would have more recoil. But having ergo, I don't want to say being more meaningful, maybe more meaningful as well, but I just don't like how it's set up where ergo is a flat value and essentially every point is effectively, milliseconds adding onto either shoulder, holding on your shoulder or ADS time. And I wish it was actually like the recoil system where it was additive or multiplicative off the base value. That way the two sort of match up in terms of how they get calculated. Because one's literally a flat value, the ergo, and you add points onto it. The other one's a base that you multiply onto it. So I don't. It just to me, having them. Maybe I'm being like too, anal or ADHD, but having
Yeah.
having them being doing the same type of maths would make way more sense to me. But
I
that's
know what
just
you
me.
mean. I know what you mean. I think the system can work the way that it is now. I just wish that for those shorter barrels, you got to choose because that's the thing with the longer barrels. And when you're trying to get something low recoil, you then have to make sacrifices. Whereas with the shorter
Mhm.
barrels, you're saying, fine, well, I'm already going to sacrifice some of my recoil. That's okay. But now I can get away with adding suppressors and that kind of thing, and I can still lift the gun up and it's fine. I think that's sort of the problem that you don't get that trade-off when you use the shorter barrel. It still sucks to put a suppressor on. It still sucks to put a 50-round mag on, whereas you need to get more benefit from having the shorter weapon. You could argue when you're talking about this points versus percent thing, it is slightly different, but you could argue that it doesn't actually matter. If you're looking at one individual gun, then it doesn't matter because the recoil is listed on the components as percent. But as far as the weapon's concerned, it's a fixed number of points because of the way the system's done. And
True.
so you could argue that
True. Yeah.
it's not quite the same because the recoil percentage then applies to every weapon, and
Right.
then that applies in a different way. Whereas the ergonomics attachments apply the same. It's as if every gun had the
Across the
same base
board.
recoil. If
Yeah.
that every gun's got the same
Right.
base ergo,
I get you.
which
Yeah.
it then does it's yeah. So if every gun had 100 base ergo in the background
Hmm.
before you had all the stuff on, or even before the receiver's added on, let's say, for example, if the receiver's got some stupid ergo debuff on it, everyone's got 100 base ergo, then the stats on the attachments, if it said plus 8% ergonomics, then that would be based on the 100,
Yeah.
the base. But it's anyway, that is sort of a silly argument, but whatever. So for an individual gun, it doesn't really matter, but it's because of the way it applies kind of across the board. But I still think it could work. As long as it was balanced correctly, I still think that system could work and could make sense. Because otherwise, what you're saying is guns that are already ergonomic get more ergonomic effect from ergonomic attachments. And I'm not sure if that's necessarily what we want. I don't
Hmm.
know. I actually not really sure. I haven't thought it through fully. I don't know. I don't know.
That's
But
a
I
good
think it
point.
can work. I think it just needs to be a bigger range. I think there needs to be a larger range for these barrels, and the trade-off needs to be to make sense. Because when I did my SA58 video at the end of, maybe it wasn't even last wipe, the wipe before, the time is flying. But when I was looking at that, I came to exactly the same conclusion as you with about the shorter barrel, because you could put, even if you didn't want to go for the full long barrel build, you could go for the medium barrel, and then you attach other attachments around it to compensate for that and end up overall with a better weapon. There wasn't, because of the way that the attachments and the prices worked for those particular attachments, there wasn't a combination on the shortest barrel that outclassed the medium barrel. The medium barrel was always better than the short barrel
Yeah.
because
Yep.
of that because that trade-off wasn't configured correctly. That makes sense. So yeah, it's tricky. It's
I
tricky. Yeah,
I do
tricky.
recall that because you have the shorter barrel, you can't get the better handguards
Yeah,
essentially. So
exactly.
yeah, I that's
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know. It just feels like a missed opportunity is all and stuff like that. When you have
yeah. I think
choices
so.
and they lead to nowhere, it bugs me.
Indeed.
But
So after that,
I
I was going to
did.
say
No, we're
yes. You
staying
did.
on
You
this
did. You
topic.
did.
I
Okay.
did use the SA58
Oh
on
yes, you did
factory.
mention.
And I did the full maximum recoil, zero ergo, drum mag, everything. Got my Zabralo on. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna get this quest done the old fashioned way. Let's go to factory. And I gotta say, man, I actually really like factory. It's just like it just feels like Giga Chad's playground. I mean, I don't want to say exclusively Giga Chad's playground because there was some real shenanigans going on. Like there was a 3-man of double barrels just charging at me. That was hilarious. There was another raid where I spawned near outside glass hallway. I peeked down glass hallway. There's 3 hatchlings running at me. I killed them. I'm like, okay, well, let me go find the other players because I need someone to shoot at my armor to get it down, right? Because I'm trying to do the quest. You gotta get under 40 or 50% the Zabralo
Yeah.
armor. I hear shots by the new area, so I go there. I look. There's a scav in a tent. I'm like, oh, maybe I'll just use this scav to kill me. I look in the extract. There's 2 more hatchlings dead. One has a cultist knife on him, and it's like, what is going on with this raid? I literally got in a raid of all hatchet runners. It was the most bizarre thing in the world. But I got the scav to shoot me down to under 50%. The quest is done. But yeah,
You
that's
know
my
those
story.
comics. This is my tangent now. You know those comics by, is he called Serval on the Reddit, where it's the Chad and the rat
Oh
player? Those are so
yeah,
good. I just had the mental image of you as the Chad in those comics, because you're turning up with the Meta SA58 with zero ergonomics, and there's a Brallo and the Altanon just turning up, and there's the rat player's just dead, was the 5 hatchlings just dead around. It's super funny. Just gave me a really funny mental image.
I literally
Oh,
had to bring a melatonin every raid just to not be. I was like 45 kilos going into the raid. Like I was so heavy. So
that's
and stuff.
insane. That is insane. Okay, are we done with the SA58? Are we done? Are we done with
I
it?
got one more. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, we're done.
Okay. All right. What else happened? VPO 215 got a buff that nobody asked for. It got an ergonomics buff. Okay, which is fine. I feel like it was okay without that, but no big deal. I don't think that's going to change anybody's life. Just for any APM
Yeah,
enjoyers out there,
but
it's
I'll I'll
a
take
little
it.
bit of a thing.
I'll take it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Then the AP 6.3 craft in the hideout was made shorter from 1 billion hours to 1 billion hours minus one. No, it went from like 8.5 hours or something to like 7.5 hours. And I don't really know. Maybe nobody was doing it because it's incredibly long and nobody uses 9mm in 1212. I'm not sure, but I don't think that's going to change anybody's life either, particularly. And much to my disappointment, the flea market capture is back. Church,
Yes, it's
the
back
capture is back.
with a vengeance.
I like to click fast inside the flea market, and
Hmm.
then I have to choose 3 Salewers to continue, and it feels like all the wind gets taken out of my sails. I really hate it. I really hate the flea market capture. They took it away. I'm assuming because of the extra load on servers and
Yeah,
stuff. But now it's back. I can't do. It's honestly awful. I would rather have there be bots like scraping prices and stuff. I don't care. Just please just take the flea capture away. It's so annoying.
it's a unfortunate thing where you trying to solve one problem and you end up through how you go about solving this problem, you end up hurting the user experience.
Hmm.
It's a very unfortunate thing. And I don't know if there is a right or wrong answer to that question. I guess it depends on how you see it. So yeah, it sucks because you get in the sort of rhythm of buying all your components and whatnot, and then it's like, you gotta which traffic select all the traffic lights. God, could you imagine if they had those in the game? I would lose my mind, dude. I would lose my
Or
mind.
like when you try to get into your profile and you
Yeah,
have to pick all the, and then it's like the
like
squares are disappearing and they're reappearing, and you're like, God, when can I get in here?
perfect example. I Dear God, I learned the hard way to never log out of the launcher and like because if you forget your password, oh my God, you got to solve like 3 captchas, and it's like, is this a bicycle? Is that's a motorcycle? Does that classify? That's a crosswalk, or is that a street paint line? Like it's dude, it's awful. It's awful. And if you mess up once, you mess up once. I think you get 2 attempts, you get locked out for an hour. An hour. Why? So yeah, yeah. I mean, thankfully, there's nothing like that in a game. Like, you imagine you just get locked out from the flea market for an hour.
Oh my goodness.
We've detected you as an
Oh.
AI. You failed the test.
When you started talking about it, reminded me of General Sam's mannerisms for some reason. I don't know why. But yeah, it's truly awful, especially trying to get into your profile specifically. I get it with all the security and two-factor, but it does maybe seems a little too much. There's two-factor authentication. You get a thing that comes through, then you have to pick all the stuff through the capture or
Yeah.
whatever. I don't know. I think that it reminds me, the problem is for me, is it reminds me of when DRM came in for general games, music, whatever, like back in the day,
Yeah.
when things like, oh, your console has to be online at all times to play,
Ugh.
slash the disc has to be in the machine, slash you're not allowed to copy the music off the discs anymore, all of this kind of thing. And all that ended up happening, especially in the short term, platforms like Steam and even Battlestate with their own thing that updates automatically and you have to verify with the central authority or whatever, that's actually kind of fixed the problem by being quite useful, and the updates happen on their own. You don't need to go and patch things manually anymore, which is actually a good solution to the whole problem. And I think one of the reasons why Steam did so well, but that's a completely another topic. The problem is back then when everything came through disk, what happened is people who were legit had to have the disk in the whole time. If the disk got scratched or the disk got lost or whatever, the internet went down, you get kicked out. Whereas the people who were not playing by the rules weren't affected because they had the cracks and the hacks and whatever to rip the discs and modify various PSs so that they didn't know some consoles, they didn't actually need to have the discs in or whatever. So you ended up with the people who were doing the thing legitimately, the ones who have the negative user experience, and the people who are doing it illegitimately find a workaround anyway. And that was like the most frustrating thing. And that's how I feel about the flea market capture. Maybe it helps. I don't know. If it does, then fine. Great. But there's, I'm sure it's not that difficult to, if you're that way inclined, to have an image map. The images are completely static. They
Yeah,
look the
for
same
sure.
every
For
time.
sure.
Right? It can't be that hard. If somebody's desperate to go and
Yes.
buy, I, d- I don't know, fuels when people put them in for 2,000 rather than 20,000, then fine. They probably could do it, but it doesn't seem really worth it. I get it before when the trader scalping was happening, but now with the finding raid restrictions, it just doesn't feel necessary anymore to me. I just don't see. Maybe there are ways to really utilize the marketplace in that way, but it's so there's so few opportunities to do that kind of thing. Looking across the set of items that sell to the traders, buying them when they're on the fleet lower than the trader, it's really kind of harmless now, rather than buying all the Salewos and listing them, or buying all the M61 and then listing
Yeah,
it all
that's a
back
good
up on the
point.
fleet. It was very different back then before the finding rate changes. It sort of made sense to try and limit bots, but now it's just like it's less important, I think.
Yeah. And exactly as you're saying, you could be point or push to the limits of your frustration. Like, fine, I'm gonna go download this image scanner, screen scanner, and it'll just automatically do the capture. And you basically become the person they were trying to prevent because you have no alternative, and in some other examples, maybe you have some different alternatives, but in this case, you have no alternative. You just have to deal with it. And maybe your way of dealing with it is just like, I'm gonna just cheat the system, screw you guys, and you end up becoming the person that they were trying to I don't know. It's just I agree with you're saying that it seems like it was put in place for a different time in Tarkov. Now we're in this new time. Okay, we've grown, we've matured. Okay, the game's different now. Let's change
Yeah,
it. Let's get rid
exactly.
of it.
We broke the flea market exploits by virtue of destroying the flea market's functionality. So it's okay. Which I think it's fine. I think it's fine. I for one did enjoy playing the markets, but it I think the game is better for it this way. Completely different topic. Did you see the announcement firstly that people should be, I don't really know how Telegram works particularly, but that people should be on Telegram and looking for the Tarkov group on Telegram because something was coming. Did you see this? Did you
I
see what
did
happened?
see it. Yeah,
Yeah, the Tarkov circles.
I was not expecting this.
I was not expecting this. I still don't really know what it is. I was very when it came up on my screen, you know those moments where you just don't really know what you're watching. That was definitely it was one of those moments. It was kind of kind of strange, I have to admit. It was kind of strange.
I'm glad you are saying these things because I felt similarly in that I was disappointed and also a little confused. So I don't know. Like, to be fair, I didn't really know what Telegram was. I remember trying to mess with it back in the day when I was doing some like Discord integration with like webhooks and something. Like I think it would like send a message and then that would trigger something and then like Discord would do something and have an announcement, whatever. But
Right.
anyways, it seems like it's just a messenger app essentially, kind of like
Yeah.
Kick or one of those
Yeah.
things.
I think the way somebody tried to get me into it at one point because of the whole WhatsApp Facebook integration and about date like
Hmm.
WhatsApp encryption and all that is all well and good, but Telegram is even more secure, super if you really are scared about people taking your data or whatever, you know that Telegram's much better. I think that was what somebody said to me, and
Hmm.
I was kind of like, I feel like firstly that ship sailed a little bit, and also whatever. So I
Yeah,
never bothered because there's that kind of critical mass thing. If nobody's on it, then I don't know anybody else on it, so whatever. But for the greater good of BSG and Tarkov, I will see what's been going on these other platforms and various
sure.
places. And I was quite surprised to be greeted with various smiling faces of all of our lovely famous content creators. It's kind of fun to see them in a more chilled environment and the ability I could see what they were going for, but I think it's because it was the first iteration that nobody really knew what they were really there for. It was
Hmm.
imagine that everybody in that world suddenly just got teleported into a warehouse
Yeah,
and
yeah.
just trying to figure out what they're really there for. Where I think once people got into it a little bit, it actually started to get a bit more fun. But for anybody who didn't see it, it was basically, as far as I can tell, some kind of group where a subset of the big content creators can just freestyle put in sort of voice video notes into each other, and anybody can kind of reply. I wasn't entirely certain of the format, but there would just be various posts in by Pestily, by the guys at BSG, by Nikita, Clean, whoever, and it was kind of a bit of a free for all of their faces and 20-second clips of Glorious E going to the gym and stuff. And I'm here for it. It was funny, and I can see how there could be some cool stuff because there was some freeform stuff and Nikita asking questions. Answering questions about
Hmm.
things in the game too. So there's definitely some potential there. But I think the first one maybe took people a bit by surprise.
Because the one I'd never end up joining it, but the one I saw was from BSG's TikTok that they posted on Twitter, and at least I think I got that right. And it was just sort of like scrolling through each of the messages, like it was first like Pestilli or someone, and someone else, and like Annie, and then like Veritas, and but it was just kind of weird because like you were saying, none of them really knew what to do, so they were just sort of like, "Hey guys," or like being funny and just like looking at the camera, doing some weird face, or it's just like I don't get it. I was so disappointed, man. I was so disappointed, honestly. But if whatever. I mean, I think I guess you can join it and like follow the
Yeah.
group chat essentially. So
Mhm.
maybe they'll develop more and it'll get interesting. But
Yeah, exactly. I think it was supposed to be just a bit of fun. So
yeah, yeah,
I don't want to be too harsh on it, but I was like,
exactly, yeah.
it was one of those things that I wasn't expecting it at all, and was
Hmm.
sort of taken by surprise and thinking, "What is this?" when I when I was watching it, which was kind of the emotion I was trying to convey most, rather than anything else. I think it's kind of it could be an interesting thing, and that informality is cool in some settings. Maybe it was sparked off by Pestley's kind of face Twitter posts that he does, because it was sort of like that, but everybody.
Yeah,
There's
I
20 seconds
think
before he goes live or whatever.
I set myself up for a bad experience because I was still thinking of like the Discord webhook integrations. I was thinking they're going to use Telegram to send out um, updates and alerts
Ah.
to their game API to go into the hideout or something. So when I saw all of the content creators in their faces, I was just like omega disappointed. Not to like hate or criticize any one of them, but I sort of through my misunderstanding of what the actual program was designed for, I had some bad expectations.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be a video like when they started off TikTok, or some little piece of lore or something, but whatever. Yeah, it is. That is what it is. Right. So unless you had anything pressing that you wanted to bring up first, there was an interesting post that somebody made to me
Okay.
on YouTube, which was, so he said to me, like, how does this even happen? It was like, I was in factory and I was playing with the shotguns, and I had Palaver 3 slugs, and I bumped into a dude who was fairly kitted and shot him in the head in his level 3 helmet, and he died from blunt damage.
Oh, interesting.
And he was streaming at the time.
Oh,
So
really?
he sent me the clip and said, "Here you go." And the guy was quite surprised and said, "Oh, this dude might be hacking or something." And then went to look into it. But it's quite an interesting thing. So Flavor 3 slugs,
Yeah, I'm
I
looking at it
think
now.
have I think they have a 0% chance to pen class 3. Oh no, maybe, is it 0? Oh yes, Flavor 3 is only 17. It's only 17 pen. So it's very low. It's a very, very low chance. I'll whip it up on here in 2 seconds
Okay.
to see exactly what the pen chance is. But I don't think it's very high. Flavor 3, yeah. So it's 1.3% chance to pen. Not that happened anyway, because you can see from the death screen when the streamer was going through his stats. He had full head HP, by the way, because that was something else I went back and looked for the whole raid to make sure that either he wasn't hurt before or hadn't got blunt damaged in some, well, not blunt damage, but spread damage from something else, and like had CMS'd his
Sure.
leg, then hadn't fixed his head maybe, and then got shot in the head. But there was none of that, and the guy was at full health, and he came around the corner in forklifts, and yeah, got one tapped by our man with these flavor threes, which is kind of interesting. Now, the only way that this could happen, and this is actually quite a well, it's a takeaway that I didn't expect, but the flavor threes do 140 damage,
Yeah.
and that basically means that the blunt damage through. So okay, so the blunt damage through this particular helmet must be enough to kill the guy in one shot. Now, let me add a critical piece of information here, which makes the story more interesting. The guy was using the Ronin head covering helmet, the level
Oh,
3 one.
that's even more interesting.
Yeah. So, what it looks like is that helmet in particular lets through a lot more blunt damage. So, when they change, when they change the armor so that some armors take more blunt or pass more blunt damage through to the user, like rigs. I think that this Ronin helmet is also one of these that
So,
passes through more blunt damage to the end user.
are you saying that? Because my understanding is when they did that change, that was only for armored rigs, not for the whole material type system. Is that correct?
Well, they changed a few things because even the Gazelle got buffed then. But I think that maybe this is a very specific situation. Maybe the Ronin has always had a terrible blunt damage throughput, or I should say a high number of blunt damage throughput somewhere.
Hmm.
So that damage goes through because using the flavor threes with 140 damage, the blunt throughput doesn't even need to be that high before you die instantly, which is quite funny. But this definitely happens. So you only need, it's exactly, if it was exactly 25%, and there wasn't any damage fall off, which there might well be. But anyway, so if it was somewhere around 25 or higher, 25 to 30% blunt throughput, then you can die in one hit, flavor threes in the head, using that particular helmet, because I don't think it happens with other helmets.
Hmm.
So this one in particular, the Ronin, must have a very, well, must have a very bad throughput for the user.
So you're saying there's an individual throughput modifier on the helmet, not related to the material type?
Correct. I believe so. For
Oh,
blunt damage in particular. Because that is the case for. I went back and watched Voxy's video from a while ago when they put this in place right at the beginning. And different armors have different values for this blunt throughput. And it depends on.
even though they're the same class and same material type?
Yes, there's another
Hmm.
statistic for blunt throughput. And
Interesting.
so the Gazelle is better, is actually the best class 5 on blunt throughput from in-game testing. It lets through less than any of the others.
But is there a class 5 that's also made of ceramic?
I can't remember. I don't think so.
That would be my question, is taking, because the reason why I say that is the Ronin helmets, its material type is aramid,
Mm.
which is unique to that helmet, I want to say. So I was curious if, because that material is
Well,
really,
helmets possibly. It's very repairable and it's actually quite good in general, but it's not used in anything above class 2 because the Packer is also aramid, I believe.
yes. The pack is aramid and mm,
Is
I
the
guess
other
I guess
one, the
that's,
other class 2 aramid? I don't remember.
yeah, I want to say so. Let's have a look here. So I got, oh, this is armored rigs. This is regular rigs. We need vest.
Oh,
And
3M is aramid, sorry. 3M is
yeah,
aramid.
yeah, yeah. Of course, they don't have sortable by material type on here.
Yeah.
Anyways,
But
interesting.
anyway, yeah, exactly. So
Interesting.
I'm pretty sure from his video that there's a series of different blunt throughputs. Not that it matters most, and this is the thing, not that it matters most of the time,
Hmm.
because to die to blunt damage, there needs to be a lot of damage in general, and normally you've just
Right.
died from penetration.
Right. Right.
So it's only in those cases where you have very high. It's like Magnum buckshot to the chest or something over and over and over again through a slick or something.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
to be fair, even through something like a trooper potentially, where you might die. You might die from that. But I'm pretty sure that that is the case, and that to me means that I think the Ronin isn't very good for that, because it's one that's always been interesting because it doesn't give you any kind of visor noise or anything, and it's covering the whole head. It's like having a face shield across the whole head without
Covers
having to.
your eyes,
Yeah,
jaws, nape, top of the head, ears.
except for the old lower nape, obviously, because
Of course.
you can always get
Lower
lower
nape.
naped. But yeah, I thought it was interesting because that one is. It's always been too expensive to really use properly, but it's one that I've always thought, that's maybe an interesting choice to make if you want to have complete coverage, but you don't care about having class 4 or something, which I think class 4 is pretty good, to be fair. But it's an interesting one in that sense, because the guy definitely died to blunt with that slug, and I don't think that happens with any other helmet. I really don't.
Yeah.
And so there's definitely something funny going on there, and I think it's the blunt throughput value on that.
Hmm.
I think that's the case. I think that is the case. But yeah, I thought that was an interesting one to me that I was investigating a little bit this week.
Pretty. Yeah, it's cool. I've always wanted to make that helmet work, but it's kind of a weird. Maybe this swipe it would have been a good helmet to do, but I don't even know when you unlock it. Actually,
I'm not sure either. Our chat's saying the LSHZ light helmet is also level 3 Aramid.
hmm. That'd be a one
So
to
it's testable.
see. Yeah, interesting.
It is actually testable.
So Ragman 3, you get the barter for it, which is 4 screws, red handle screwdrivers, 4 wrenches, and 1 metal cutting scissors. Which,
It's quite a lot.
yeah, I mean it's an interesting helmet because it doesn't have a lot of penalties. I mean, yes, you can't wear ears, and it has high sound reduction, but you don't have a
That's the
visor.
problem.
You turn speed isn't. It's only minus 10% turn speed, not that bad. I've used it before, but it does feel a little silly back in the old days where you had access to tons and tons of good ammo. So
Yeah.
maybe next swipe I'll give it a go. Report. I did want to ask you about something I was looking into,
Mhm.
which was, and you mentioned the AP 6.3 craft,
Oh yeah.
because it's a really weird craft. You can't buy the ammo from traders at all. At all, at all.
You mean AP63?
Yes. Sorry, did
Yeah.
I say something else? Yes, sorry,
No, no, no. I
AP63.
thought I thought maybe you meant because I couldn't remember what was in the craft. And some of the crafts need other ammo. No, that's not the case, is it, on this one, actually? That's not the
Well,
case. That's
yes,
the ACPAP. So I couldn't remember what the craft was. I couldn't remember whether ACPAP went into this one or whether it was the other way around. It's actually the other way around. So the AP 6.3s, you can turn those into ACPAPs. For
the
it doesn't
45
matter.
AP.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I thought for a second you were potentially saying that's one of the ingredients you couldn't buy, but that's not the case. So we'll move on.
Well, there is some relevance there because it is kind of a weird thing. You craft the ammo and then take that ammo and use it in, because it's banned from the Flea also, right?
Mhm.
So you craft the AP 6.3 to then use it in another craft to craft the AP ammo. But you I don't know. All right, so let me start from the beginning. So it takes 8 hours to make 150 rounds of AP 6.3, right? And going
Mhm.
from today's prices, okay, Hawkgun powder's around 30K, and you need 400 rounds of PSTZH, which is 25K. So what is that? Quick math: 60 plus 25, that's 85. That's 85,000 rubles is your input. and you're gonna get 150 rounds of AP 6.3. So we'll divide that
Okay.
by 150, right? To see how much we're paying per bullet. Okay. And you get 566.6666 remaining rubles. So per bullet, you're essentially paying that much for the price. Now, let's say you unlock Peacekeeper 3, is it?
I think it's 3.
Yes. He sells 45 AP for 593 rubles, $5, right? So to me, it just seems a little weird that why would you do this craft to get a 9 mil ammo? I mean, granted, it's 9 mil, so maybe you can't put 45 into start 9 mil guns. Yes, 9 mil shoots faster. I get it, but anyways, it's a lesser. It can barely penetrate class 3. All right, I've been using it, and I shot this guy point blank in resort. I snuck up on him. I thought he was a Giga Chad. I'm not gonna lie, because I had a Vector, 9 mil Vector with a drum mag, and I mag dumped him, and he was not dying, Giga. I was scared.
Yeah.
I was like fearful, and I'm like less than 5 meters. Like I'm literally up the stairs in resort, the stairs that lead up to the different floors. I'm like creeping up from the basement of the stairs, and he's just like he's in the hall. He's across from the stairs. He's like in the bathroom closet, looking down the hallway. He's oblivious to me, but I can tell he's got a helmet on, like a beefy helmet with a face shield. But I'm just like mag dumping him, and he freaks out. He turns and starts shooting at me, and I'm like slowly backing down the stairs because I was creep walking up the whole time. So I'm like, oh god, he's not dying. I need to retreat. He dies at like the last bullet. I go to loot him. He's wearing a class 3 armor, dude. It's like the one you get from level 1 Prapper, the barter for the what is it? The red propane
Or
tank.
the propane tank, yeah.
Yes. I'm like, "Oh my god, dude, this guy was tanking." I mean, I'd zeroed out his armor completely, but his armor almost saved his life. It was insane. So it's like this ammo is so bad, especially because the ballistics this wipe. You're losing that pin. So you're probably like, as soon as you come out the barrel, it's probably 27, 28 pin at like close up, maybe even worse, dude. You might be able to pull out some quick mass for me. But it's like, why? Okay, let me say it like this. PSG, can we please add this back to traders for $4 a round, maybe? I don't know. Or maybe buff the craft. It would really help us out. Thank you, Nikita.
It doesn't make sense to have the craft that way around, right? Because I think, again, this is another one of those. The Vector and the drum broke the 9 mil category entirely. There's needs to be some way to fix it because they added 7N31, which has now been renamed to PBP. And
Mhm.
I actually don't think AP 6.3 was the problem. I think PBP was the problem, really. AP 6.3 has never been very good. It has
It's
always been
yeah.
a false sense of security, in my opinion, because it really struggles with class 4. Everybody wears class 4 these days, and it's a
Yeah.
9% pen chance or something like that. It's actually pretty disgusting because it only has what's the pen on this? It's 30.
731?
Oh, so
Oh, it
the 731 is 39.
yes.
So it's better than BT, right? That stuff was insane. People just used to get hosed down with that with the vector.
Yeah.
But AP63 is 30. And yeah, you said, look at the quick math, whatever. If you get to 50 meters, it's 28. So 25 meters is 20. You lose one pen. You're losing a pen every
Right.
25 meters, something like that. And you're down from 52 damage to 48 damage. So it scales down quite quickly. So a 28 pen, you're not really penning anything.
Y You're getting through that pack armor, yay. Like, I don't yeah,
Yeah.
it's just like where it's placed at in the game currently treats it as if it's like this god tier round. You know what I mean? It's like, guys, we cannot have too much AP 6.3 for the round. You're only limited to craft 150 per 8 every 8 hours. Like, dude, this stuff's insane. But in reality, it's like kind of hot trash. Like, I don't know. I just feel like it should be back Make it see, I don't even think they could like remove it from the flea market. Sorry, unban it from the flea market because I still think I don't think anyone would craft it, and the people that do craft it would probably just overprice it because the input's so high already. Like you need 400 rounds to get 150 rounds out of it. Like it's kind of weird, but I don't know. Basically, what I'm saying is you literally are just better off crafting anything else that makes money and using that money to buy 45 AP from
Yeah.
Peacekeeper. It's
Oh, absolutely.
like or let's not even say that. Use, because you have to work to get that unlock from Peacekeeper, right? Use any
Mhm.
other caliber. Don't bother with 9 mil because you're you're paying almost 600 rubles a round for something that's doing like tickling them. Like it really doesn't add up. And the crazy part too is like you can get rip ammo off the flea market for a little bit cheaper than that. And I don't know, man. Something about that. I guess it's kind of the same thing, we talked about earlier, just how these things get I don't know if it's over nerfed or if it's just I don't they don't get it's like they nerf it and then problem solve and it just like fades into obscurity. That's the stuff that just like kind of bums me out. Because I actually kind of liked AP 6.3 back in the day. It wasn't the most attractive thing because it was like slowly it kept getting nerfed. Like once honestly what ruined it was 7 and 31 coming out. Because 7 and 31 came out and then they were nerfing 7 and 31 and then people were still like mixing the two ammos. And so they were like, okay, well now we all got to nerf 7 and 31. And we also got to nerf AP 6.3 because they're still putting in their vectors, Anyway, so
Yeah,
curse you, vector. Because I actually
exactly.
liked using AP 6.3 and treating it as like, okay, I'm going to use a very low recoil MP5 SD or something like this. And I just have to be Shroud. I just have to shoot him in the face. As
Yeah.
long as they're not wearing Alton, then I'm okay, But
That was always the way it was, and that's the thing. I think 9 mil has kind of been destroyed this wipe because of that. So
absolutely.
it's the problem because it's the starter bullet in many ways, but also it goes in the vector, which ruined everything. 9 mil was perfectly balanced before the vector came out.
It's
Even
actually
with
true.
7N31, even when 731 came out, it was actually okay until the vector arrived, and then it just destroyed everything. But then there's a handful of times that I've seen people running the vector. I've probably run the vector more than I've seen other people running the vector, and I used it right at the beginning on factory just to kind of mess around with PST rounds. But the problem is with these crafts and the way that they're set up is that the only reason why the vector was so good in the first place was because the fire rate was so high, which made up for the slightly lackluster rounds. Because even PvP is not the best round in the entire world. It's good, no doubt about it, but it's not insane. It's definitely not a meta round, so to speak. But the vector has a meta fire rate, which caused PvP then to be very good, and it put it on par with the P90 and the MP7 and a few other things,
Yeah.
which is why it ended up being so crazy. Because before then, as you're saying, with the MP5 SD, which I used to love running either PvP or AP 6.3 or a mixture of both, it
Mhm.
was it was great. It was really good, honestly. It was super, super good. I mean, just for a quick comparison to show you how crazy the difference is. And I don't really understand. I guess it's the drum. It's the drum that killed it. So AP 6.3, 52 damage and 30 pen. PvP, 52 damage and 39 pen. ACP AP, 38 pen, which one less than PvP, 70 damage. It's wild. Like ACP AP is
Yeah,
way
it's
better than
really
9
good.
mil. It's really good. It's really, really good. And then because of the way that the recoils ended up working, the
Mhm.
UMP, which last wipe was complete and utter trash and no one ever wanted to use it ever, has turned into total sort of I don't know go to SMG to
Yeah, I think
use
so.
either as a sidearm or main it because of the low fire rate is benefiting recoil so heavily. There are so many things that Tarkov's such a weird game for kind of thresholds and breakpoints and that kind of stuff. And we've talked about this a lot around penetration of armor, around pen values, 37 pen, the sensitivity of pen, and all this kind of stuff. But the same thing applies for weapons too. So something like the M4s, which are completely out of fashion now entirely. I never really hear the M4 go off at
Yeah.
all in my raids. The problem with that is that when you're making budget builds, I used to love making budget builds for the M4 because pretty much no matter what you did at level 3 traders, you would get to somewhere between 50 and 55 recoil and 50 and 55 ergo. Pretty much no matter what you did. I've tried millions of different attachments, different stocks,
Hmm.
foregrips, but they're all in the same level of recoil
Yeah.
reduction. And so you always end up getting to the same place normally. The only reason as to why you can make the damn thing into a meta laser is because you need the Altor receiver upper, which is super high level and you can't get it till the end. You need the SI advanced tube, you can't get that
Yep.
until the end either. And potentially, the longer barrels, which you can only get near the end. And with those three attachments, that actually changes the maths quite significantly because especially the Altor, because you end up with, I think it's -5% recoil or something, and it's decent.
Might
And
even be.
between those three parts, because I think that's 5. I think the SI advance is 4, and the longer
Hmm.
barrel. But even just between those two, the 9% recoil reduction between those takes your 50 recoil weapon and takes it into the high 30s. And that was always the difference. That was always the big difference. But the problem now is that those 50 to 55 recoil and ergo M4s, they just feel awful. They feel so bad now because of that threshold, but you can't bump it down into the mid 40s without using these meta parts. It just isn't
Yeah.
really possible to make that gun anymore. And
Yep.
so it's just been relegated and no one bothers using it anymore. And what's even the point when you can just use a UMP? As Chat was saying, you grab the knives from Fence and you buy this thing for about 28k or something, and then you put ACPAP in it and it rips people.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So there's all these changes, and this craft is suffering, as you say, from over nerfs where I don't think it's I don't think it's necessarily a lack of foresight, so to speak. It's just very hard to predict these kind of changes. It's one of
Absolutely.
those things where, yeah, a few things change, they make a few tweaks in a few areas, but it turns out that some of the changes compound on top of each other, and you end up, whoa, okay, we've ended up all the way over here when we didn't really mean to be. Because now we've nerfed the ammo, we've nerfed the guns, we've nerfed the recoil, we've nerfed everything. It's like okay, we're all the way out here, and now we need to kind of bring it back. I think they should bring back. I think they should bring back a look. If ACPAP is on Peacekeeper 3, AP 6.3 at least should be back on Peacekeeper 4. At least. Like you don't need to bring back PvP because
At
that round
least
is gold
two.
tier. But somewhere in the traders, I think AP 6.3
Yeah, for
should
sure.
should be. I don't think it should be a very long craft that requires you to, because nobody, as you said, no one's going to do it, and so it's just gone. People would
Yeah.
rather craft wires out of power cords and buy ACPAP instead from Peacekeeper
Yeah.
and run those.
And so this is another thought I've had, but you can make valid arguments, I think, for doing it. But for example, the BP craft, right? So it takes God, I can't believe it takes this long, but it takes 16 hours. Let me pull it up here so I get a better view. Workbench. Okay. So it takes 16 hours, right? And 40 minutes to craft 120 rounds. Now, granted, your inputs are you basically end up inputting, well, let's just see here. So we'll say green gunpowder is 35,000 times 2, and you need 2 blues, and we'll say we'll keep it simple. So 12,000, so
Yeah.
it'd be 24,000. Tell me I hit add to that. Did I hit add to that? Oh my god, all right, hold on. Let's start over. So 24,000 plus 70,000. I did not hit add to that. Okay, so 94,000 is our input. Okay. We're going to get 120 rounds. So per round, we're getting 783 rubles per round over the course of 16 hours, though. Now, you can argue that, oh, if you're going to go to bed, you should do the craft. That way you have it, sort of like your off time, right? And I think that makes sense. But for me, what makes more sense for me at least is I'll just cycle between wires and power cords and make, God, I don't even know, 24K an hour. I don't know what that works out to, but I'll generate money that way and then go buy it from Prapper every 4 hours he resets because he sells it at level 4 Prapper. You gotta have the Punisher quest line done, but he sells it for 1,000 rubles and some change. But I can just get way more in that period of time by just crafting something completely. It's like it's I don't know. It's weird, man. It doesn't really make a. I don't know. Like I said, you can argue to do the craft at night, but
It's always the argument about opportunity cost within the hideout, though. This is the thing. It's
sure.
you pick the highest amount of money per hour spent while you're on, and then you pick the highest absolute amount of money while you're off. And whether that's BP, whether it's any of the other crafts, it doesn't.
Well,
It's actually almost unrelated that it is the BP craft in some ways. It just so happens that you bypass the step of buying it from Prapor. Does that make sense?
yes,
If
because
it's the
you're
most economical craft, then you'll just do that one. You just didn't need to buy them.
yeah. Let's see. I don't. Let's see if it is the most economical. Because that's the thing is like since you can't sell it for money, you're exclusively crafting it for utility,
Mm,
right? Because I mean, you can't like you can vendor it, but you're gonna be in a negative. So if you're exclusively crafting it for utility, you're essentially just paying the cost per round, how much the craft costs.
yeah.
So yeah, it's like, I don't know, man. I just yeah, I guess you can't. Alright, well, let's see here. The most profitable craft is, I wish there was a reset all button because I have numbers in these. But in terms of straight profit, so it looks like no, because you can't sell the SP6. So it looks like it's probably the green battery. Let me just clear out some of these things, these prices I got set. So just in raw output, the green battery takes 5 hours to craft. So you craft that overnight and you get 218,000 rubles. So
Okay.
then the next day, let's say you get 3 prepper resets in to buy the ammo, BP. And you wouldn't happen to have prepper BP unlocked, would you? I wonder
I
how many
actually
you
I
can
actually
buy.
do, but because of the half an hour timer, my game is closed. So I'll reopen it. But I think it's about 1,100 roughly. And you said
Well,
that based on the craft at the moment, it's about 730, was it?
yeah, 733.
Ish.
And what how many can you buy from the trader from prepper, I wonder?
Oh, I don't know, but what does that matter? Because what really matters is how many you get in the craft. Because the craft gives you 120, did you say?
Yes.
Because you're kind of making if you're this is the thing, the assumption that you're going to make BP for use and you want and BP is your end goal, then the money that you make is the money that you save, which is 370 around times 120, which is 44k.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good way of doing that. So yeah, it would just be better to do the greenback
You do the green
craft,
battery trade and then you go and buy or the
buy it.
craft and then you go and buy it from Prapor afterwards for I have it is it on 3? Oh, yeah, it's on 3. Oh, it's 1161. So it's a bit higher actually. Yeah. 1161.
And then
But
how
that
many can
actually
you
just makes it better to do
right.
the craft, I suppose. Um, that's 730. I'm just going to go back to it. It's times 120. So okay, so that's 52k then. That's 52k. And the green battery was how much? It's a lot, no? 200 or
55
something?
or yeah, sorry, 218. Just pure
Yeah.
profit, not, rubles per hour.
Yeah. So you're better off doing that one overnight and then going and buying your BP afterwards. So you can buy 120 from him.
That's assume oh, okay, so all you need is one reset. Yeah. So I and someone in your chat pointed out made a good point. Cornelicious says, "I wish the crafts were all for utility, not just maximizing profit, but then I can't watch Airwing Marine do his hideout craft run down." That's hilarious. And
That's so
I
good.
I I kind of feel the same as I kind of feel like there's I don't know. It's tough because I like both sides of the equation, but at the end of the day, it's just objectively better, I think, in most scenarios to just do the thing that gives you the most money
Mhm.
because money is the ultimate utility craft. I can get the majority of things with money. Not this wipe so much. There's a bit of a caveat to that. You need money and XP to get the majority of things,
Yeah,
being trader lock items. So it's wild. Tarkov, man, just
yeah,
like it's an inner web of things. One
exactly.
one thing gets changed and the
This
whole
is
chain's
why
broken.
Nikita was talking about how last wipe the meta was rubles and how he wanted to change that because it's not quite like that anymore, as he said. It still is at the top level because the barters are in their ways for the market to continue to price the
Sure.
items but keep the trader level progression in place. That's what it's done effectively.
It's a
Kept the trader
hybrid.
levels in place, yeah, but allowed the market to price the items through virtue of pricing the underlying items because the underlying items are not useful to players that don't have the traders
This
at the right level,
yes.
which is quite interesting. But there was somebody was posting, I think it was Mello actually posted on Twitter saying, what would happen if you made all of the barters in the game finding rate only? And Airwing said, "Oh well, they'd need complete rebalancing because it would break everything, and it would all be like the barters would be done off RNG rather than I don't know a fairer system or something." And whilst I do agree with them, it needs quite a bit of rebalancing. And I think we spoke before about having different tiers of items, maybe, and you could hand in different items from the same tier or something that the traders would accept,
Yeah, I
either
do remember that.
any of the cigarettes or something like that. But again, made me think and revisit my idea behind 7N31 being the perfect. Is it 7N31? Have I got 9 mil stuck in the brain? Yeah, the new ammo for 545. There's was 7N39.
Uh,
7M40, sorry, 7M40. I've got 9 mil stuck in the brain. Yeah, 7M40, the new round that you can't find anywhere. There's no barters, there's no crafts, you can't buy it from traders. You can only find it within
in raid.
boxes in raid and airdrops, and that's about it.
Quest
That
rewards
to me,
occasionally.
and maybe quest rewards, that to me is the perfect contender for a find in raid barter to test the system. To see how many people actually go out and try to
Yeah.
find the items. And you could even
Yeah.
have it on a rotation or something so that the items change every week or whatever. I don't know. Maybe it'd be too easy, but you could make it really expensive. You could make it lots of different items. So you have to really go on a quest to go and find it. And imagine if you did do that and it was only one reset per week or something. I don't know. There's lots of ways that you could still restrict
There
it
is.
a lot, but make it a round that people can actually use rather than using 3 per mag at the top.
Yeah, it is kind of a it's like so they're like so different extremes on the spectrum, it's like on one hand, rip ammo, for example, for 9 mil, you could buy on the flea market, you buy from traders, you could find an array. Like you could get so much of it. You could run 9 mil rip ammo all day. 7 and 31, you probably have to spend like a good week of like hardcore gaming hours, just like at the grindstone, just like that was your only goal to be able to run a single kit with 7 and 40 in all your mags. Like it'd be such a task. So it the dichotomy there is just like way opposite ends of the spectrum. And as you're saying, having something where it's like you can work towards it and it's a barter trade that has to be found on raid. So you can't just do any type of work because that's kind of how the flea market works right now. You show your work through rubles and how you get the rubles. There's tons of different ways to do that work. You could go play a scav, you could go play a PMC, you could have stuff in your container that you die with and sell to the vendor. You could craft stuff, sell stuff. There's tons of ways. So you can loot anything and then sell it and then buy whatever you want that's available to you to be bought. Whereas this system you're describing is something where we're gonna sell you this really valuable thing, but you have to go loot these specific items. It's almost like it's literally a quest,
Yeah.
but it's continual. And as you said, they could
Hmm.
do it where it changes. Like friend of mine, Ark Smesser, talking to him and him showing me some of his stuff he's worked on, he actually approached me with this idea where you have find and raid barters. That way players aren't able to gamify it. Having them, you know, you got to survive basically to or get it from a quest reward to be able to use it,
Yeah,
and they rotate. That way if it's like pack of nails and that's the barter, then people are just gonna hit toolboxes every they're gonna be all over Ollie. Like the lobby's gonna be full of people going to Ollie.
exactly.
But if you have a rotating, maybe one day it's nails and cigarettes, the next day it's hand drills and power banks or something, then it's like it makes it evolving and interesting and feels fresh. It's not the same old, system that we've been playing with where yeah, prices get linked to one item and then a new barter's added and then it uses that same thing and then all of a sudden the price gets shot up and like Salewa's there's the barter for the paids and
Yeah,
they used to be at the price of Salewa's are a little bit cheaper, but then they added impact grenades. And at the time when they added it was one paid, and people were buying up paids like crazy, and the price skyrocketed to like 68K for a paid. So it completely killed the Salewa barter. I feel bad for the people that didn't know any better because they can't even they're not high enough level to even see that barter exists. So they're
yeah.
thinking, oh, I'm gonna take this paid and get a Salewa. It's like rip, you just lost a ton of value right there, dude. That thing's worth way more than what you think. So
Yeah, it is interesting. I'm because I'm not opposed to making things difficult to get, but I think having them it's a good test because having them so rare that you can't even think about using them, I don't think is that great. And also the ways that you get them is very random. You can't be even remotely specific about it. I don't want people farming a particular drop. It goes in
right.
Kibba and you farm it as a 5-man and everyone goes there because it's one specific spawn. That's not really what I want. It's more that I don't just say, okay, well, any airdrop and it could be in any bag randomly. That's just too wide. You can't hunt for that. It randomly happens when you're not looking for it, and you think, oh, okay, I've got 30 of these, but you weren't really looking for it, so it doesn't feel as exciting. I don't know. I'd like some way to get it, and if you're looking for it in terms of a finding made barter, then at least you feel like you're making progress towards something that you want, and you can do it piece by piece as well. Potentially, you have to get those items out to make it worthwhile. I think it'd be kind of cool. There's some other contenders for it too. I was looking at, and I'm slowly starting to put together my new tier 5 guide because it's a bit different this wipe and going through it and checking out the various things. There are 3 tier 5 armors that are impossible to buy. It is not possible to buy them at all. Killer, obviously,
Right.
because it's just not on the fleet, and the only way that you could get it before was from Killer himself.
Mhm.
The Defender 2,
Defender, yeah,
which never had any trader barters
right.
for or purchases, but it was found on scavs relatively often enough that people would put it up on the flea market.
Mhm.
And the other one is the middle Gen 4, not the big one and not
Really?
the mobility, but the one in the center. Is it? I can't remember if it's. I'm not really a Gen 4 user, but it's either Salt or the other one. It's the one in the center, but there's nothing else there. There's no barters for it. You can't get it at all. I got one from a Ragman quest. I think it's a quest reward, but there's no way to get it
That's
otherwise,
probably
which
the
is
one.
interesting. I didn't realize this, but there's three. There's three armors that are impossible to source outside of raid. And killer, I mean, very
Gen
difficult to find killer these days anyway.
Yeah, so
I've not seen
it's
a defender. I've not seen a defender wearing scav for a long time.
I think mostly that's, like, cultists and, like, scav bosses, minions type of stuff.
I think so, yeah. I think so. So those armors have become super, super duper rare. And in those situations, I wouldn't mind there being a finding made barter for those. So the items that have been completely removed, I don't even mind there being a finding made barter for killer armor in some ways, because it gets passed down through some supply chain or whatever.
Mhm.
Killer respawns millions of times anyway, so it's not really immersion breaking to have multiple copies of his armor around. I don't know. It's it's fine. I just like that. Maybe not killer, but maybe the other two. Maybe the other two that'd be finding way barters. It just seems like the perfect candidate because you can't get them any other way. So it seems like there's no real issue in putting them in that sense because you're hardly increasing the the supply of them, and you get to test out a cool new system. I don't know. I think it'd be good.
Yeah, maybe. Part of me likes the find and rate system. Um, Part of me doesn't because it just kind of feels bad that, if I get a player with Killa armor and I want to sell in the flea market, I can't because it doesn't have a check mark. And, I did the work, but I can't actually I only have one option realistically to use it. I mean, I guess you could sell it, but to the vendor.
Do you think though that the game plays better without the flea being fully open in this wipe? Because I
Oh,
do.
um, I think that there's nothing inherently wrong with player trading. So I don't think that's the issue. And I don't necessarily think people are saying that, but I think that kind of gets glossed over. I just think that once you're out of the raid, you're there is no negatives to doing player trading. Like it's only a positive thing. You only gain. I mean, yes, you're trading money for stuff, but I guess I'm saying like find and raid means that I have to go in the raid and risk something. Flea market is sort of like the after side of that, right?
Sure, but I
There's
think
there
the problem is the ability to turn rubles into or any item into any other item. I think that's the issue. Using money as the ultimate conversion from any item to any other item, as well as potentially a lack of scarcity within the loot pool, which is its own problem, which is the reason why those items are there in the first place. You could say, well, anybody can go and buy military tubes, but there aren't that many, and that's the reason why the price is so high. So there are ways to balance this, I suppose, but doing it in a way, because that's the way that this wipe is working, right? Is that that ease of moving between one item and another has been removed for anything remotely good, and you only get that much later on when you're unlocking stuff near the top. It's changed the way that this wipe plays out significantly, and I still think that we're probably entering into a time that's going to be quite tough for a lot of players. But the more I think about it, a ton of guys just maxed out to the end game anyway, and lots of people were playing end game content when no one else was and kicking the shins of all the lower levels before. So
Mhm.
I'm not sure how much different it's going to be this wipe, as much for my doomsday predictions previously as to the mid game.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to say because they have played with the stocks of traders. Like I don't know if you noticed this, but fuel is kind of hard to get from the prepper barter.
Yeah.
Like you kind of have to camp the trader. I've heard pretty much everyone say that the slicks are always out of stock, the slick trade from Ragman. And you got to think we're only like 40 days into the wipe and people are already complaining about that. So, and that kind of tells me, I mean, that I honestly feel like we're pretty much in late game mode. I don't want to say that because I know not everyone's there, but I feel that the late game now is different than late game of last wipe. Instead of seeing slicks everywhere, I'm seeing a lot of class 4 rigs, a lot of meta guns. At least in my raids anyways. It's like the new norm is no longer M61 slick. It's like M62 AACP rig or the TV 110, you
Mhm.
know. And occasionally like I've seen a couple Alton gamers recently, but granted I was playing like I probably played like 16 hours that day, dude. That day was crazy. So and I was one of them myself, I had some Alton stocked up, so I don't know. It's kind of hard to say for me what that means, but I just my point being, I was trying to make earlier is I think that if you had to, like, yes, money is the ultimate thing, and maybe that is a problem, right? Because money can be used for anything. Like, realistically, what's money used for is traders and hideout upgrades, like outside of player trading, right?
Yeah.
Those are like the two things. And traders, in theory, are unlimited. They're capped for reset globally. They have a global supply, but in theory, they're unlimited as the wipe goes on. Whereas the hideout is a one-time purchase,
Mhm.
but it loses a little bit of value. But I feel like if you had to physically take the money to the location in the raid to then buy the item and then physically take that back, what that would mean to me is that military tube you were using earlier may or may not be priced at that same price point. I would suspect it would be a lot lower because you're paying. I don't know. I could be wrong, but you're sort of risking 1,000,000 rubles to go get the item, and then now you have 1,000,000 rubles worth of item to go take it back and secure it in your stash. I can't see prices being that insanely high. And I think what that also would do is like that player trading doesn't become instant and secure, free, I guess. There's like risk involved. Because it's like you pay it's the old thing, man. It's like you at least for me, I always typically go for the hideout upgrades, the GPU farm. That's like the first thing I prioritize because it's a once it's done, it's guaranteed. It may take 150 days, 200 days for it to start breaking even and making me money, but that's just a guarantee. Whereas me spending $250 on, sorry, 2,500 euros on an M4 rubles. Numbers, too many numbers, man, too many currencies. Spending money on an M4 that I can then lose in a raid. I may not get back insurance. I spend money on insuring. Someone may take it. It's not a guarantee. So I don't know. Listening to Nice Guys, one of his videos, I think he talked about some open world stuff. I really don't think
Yeah.
we'll get there, but it's just weird because the problems that I see in Tarkov relate around the economy. I don't see in these other games like Daisy mods where they have like in-ray traders
Mm.
or Rust. Even like it's crazy because Rust actually has a feature now where you can sit in your base and buy stuff, and they have a drone or like you have to pay a fee. A drone that goes to the other person's base, grabs the item, takes it to this like central trading hub. So you do have to go to the trading hub and get the item and then take it back to your base. But the old days, it used to be like, dude, this guy's base is like on the other side of this giant map. I gotta travel to like literally the Arctic. Like you're in the starting zone where it's like forest and greenery. He's in the Arctic selling this thing you want. So you gotta go all the way up north. And if your base is in the starting zone, you gotta like travel like it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. So yeah, I don't know. It's weird. It's weird.
Yeah, it's such a weird thing. I think we're just gonna have to see what happens with open world and that kind of thing. I don't think other than the new traders, I don't think that we'll see the existing traders in raid, but we'll have to see about that. But I don't know, man. I just feel that this wipe, it
Yeah,
feels. I just think that the progression feels better. I think maybe,
for sure.
and maybe I'm feeling extra optimistic about it today. Is that in previous wipes it was everything was locked except for the flea, but then it meant that everybody could buy stuff from the flea, good ammo usually, and small amounts of it. But the meta chads could still buy all the top level trader stuff, so they had all the good guns. Whereas this wipe, no one could buy anything from the flea except for the guys at the top who can buy all the good guns. But there's still enough. There's actually still enough decent choices like lower down the progression that you can you can still compete because it's as you're saying, you're not seeing that many people wearing level 6, and some people are wearing class 5. But most of the time, it's still class 4 because it's just so much more economic. And I think part of the problem is that half the time, unless you're an ultimate gamer, you can still just get shot in the face, and it really diminishes the ability of class 5 and 6 armors to feel like they're good value, which was kind of true in previous wipes, I suppose.
Yes.
But people were the guns that people were using were a bit different and stuff. I feel like it changes it somewhat because before people were prioritizing like super high pen to get through the class 6. You don't need to anymore, so you can use more routine rounds, and I don't know, you can use more shotguns,
But
and leg methods just been getting stronger and stronger as the wipes have been going on. There's just a really wide variety of ballistics that are coming your way these days, and with class 4 now being the thing, I just think it's actually more. It almost feels like sort of fairer. I don't know, even though there's less access to those things because there is a lot less access to the stuff right at the top. It's kind of pulled everybody back down, which has given everybody a chance to kill anybody, kind of.
yeah, that's what you're saying. Because they have effectively lowered it to 4, and you get 4 earlier than you would get 5 or 6 in the past. Because I think, yeah, so, but even, I don't know, even then, I run 5 a lot. Do you run the Corund? Are you a Corund enjoyer?
It
Don't tell me
depends.
you're a
It
Gazelle
depends.
enjoyer.
If I am using class 5, then I've sort of been using a bit of both actually. I haven't been specific to one in
Mhm.
particular. Normally, I run the Corund if I'm doing like SVD bigger guns because of the
Yeah,
move speed penalty, and then I use the Gazelle if I'm doing AK-74N, SMGs, that kind of thing because of the move speed, so I can move quicker and maneuver around the map. So DMR type gameplay, I'm probably go Corund, but because also it works out that way too because the Corund's got the lowest durability of the whole grouping, but when you're at long range, what you really want to do is you want to take one solid shot from somebody firing M62 or something. And that's what you really want. Whereas at closer range, you kind of want the higher durability because you want to take
that's true.
5 rounds of BT at
Yeah,
point blank. Whereas the Corund will get shredded a bit too quickly. Whereas the Gazelle has it's not amazing, but it does protect you a little bit more, and there's less blunt damage, as we were talking about previously from the Gazelle. It
mhm,
is better for that, and so you're less likely to die. I mean, it's one of those funny things because I've been looking at comparing them again, and it really is that kind of like the Gazelle is better in pretty much every way than the Corund, except for the economic components, which is repairability, the original purchase cost, and where it ends up going to when you repair it, right? But like, if you were to only play one raid and you had to pick between the two armors, you'd pick the Gazelle every time because it's better on all the stats. It has higher durability and it has lower blunt damage, so it protects you more. So it's strictly better. It's strictly a better piece of armor. There is actually, I can't think of really anything that it's not better at, except for it's smaller, which means it gets taken more often. There's a quest which people need to use to hand them in, so people take them more often. The Corund's, yeah, it's bigger, it's heavier, it's more weighty, whatever, and then but it's cheaper to buy. And so that's the thing. It's kind of like if you want to go economics, you tend to go
Corund.
Corund. If you want something that's going to perform slightly better, but you don't have the money to buy the Tactec, which by the way sells out in like 30 seconds, because I think there's about 200 every reset, which is insane. I managed to buy one because I sat there waiting, or I put an alarm on and waited for it and click buy, and it's a 2 to 3 minutes. It's not an instant 15-second sellout, but you have to have all the items ready, and if you buy
Yeah,
your stuff at the right time, you can get it for 150k or something, which is pretty decent. But
yeah,
there's really not that much choice. This is what I've been coming to terms with after going through, and I'm not a level 4 ragman yet, but at level 3 ragman, you and Prapor, I suppose, because of the current, you're either going current, you're going Gazelle, maybe you get access to the Tactec. That's it. There's
as
no,
far
there's
as,
no, nothing
yeah.
else you can do for level 5. Yeah, there's nothing else you can do, and
Isn't
half
there,
of the level 5 has been removed completely. There's actually no, there's a Gem 4 barter. There is a Gem 4 barter
sure,
as
but
well,
it's really expensive.
and you can buy the Redutem at 240k, so that you
Yeah.
technically can buy those two. But like, are you gonna choose those two? It's like quarter of a mil for class 5 armor. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. The Reduke was great when it was 130k,
It
and the
was
Gen 4 mobility was 130k as well.
fantastic.
And I
Fantastic.
thought before when this wipe hit was, oh, they're all going to be removed, and I was like, 240k for a Reduce him on Ragman. That's completely insane. No one's ever going to buy that. And then, looking at the various prices of things, you've got the two cheaper armors in the, depends on whether you have Frapple 4 unlocked, but if you don't, then you're talking 120, 130 to 150-ish for those two armors. Tactics like 180, and you're thinking, okay, well, that's sort of the next one. The next jump up is there's a Reduce at 240. It doesn't seem that out of place anymore. It's kind of weird. I thought it was going to be wildly off, but it's really, yeah, it doesn't, I still don't think it's good value. I still don't think it's good value,
Absolutely not.
but it doesn't feel as wildly out of line. And the Gen 4 is the same. The Gen 4 is about 240k because it's 7 GP coins. So
Yes, but here's where it gets a little more complex. If you go up to Ragman max level
Mm.
and you do the slick barter or the God, doesn't he have another barter that's pretty good? Maybe not. I don't know. We'll just say this.
Isn't the slick barter really expensive now though? Because now it's
Well, let's
3 troopers.
see. Yes, it is 3 troopers. Not slickers. All right, so it is okay, so it is 375,000 by my numbers. So for 1,000 rubles more, you can instead of getting a reduct, you can get a slick. Is that worth it? That's kind of tough to say.
It's the
I don't
problem.
know.
It's like, what are you going to wear in your head at that point? This is the issue that I have. Unless
Yeah,
you're playing factory and you're somebody who's used to wearing an alt-in and you're going to be playing in resort or dorms or something, what are you going to wear on your face? This is the big problem that I have when moving up armor classes because 60% of my deaths are head eyes.
I'm gonna commit right now to do samples. I'm committing, and I'm gonna start running face shields and see because that's really gonna be the big decider. Is the class 3 face shield going to be the difference maker this swipe? Because in past swipes, I've always felt like the class 3 face shield was just not worth because on average, everyone was using class 4 penetrating round. BT is like technically class 3.5, so a bit of a dice roll BT, and then 55681. But anyways, so that's really going to be the question for me if to kind of answer what we're talking about here. Is this wipe more balanced, which I think it is early. I think we're gonna see problems later. But anyways, that's what I'm gonna do because I have been putting that quest off because I'm a little baby and I'm scared of labs. Okay, I have black, so I should be able to do it in a reasonable amount of time.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, because I was thinking about it. I was like, oh, I don't even know how I'm going to do this quest, but I need to think about it and actually look into doing it because it's one that I didn't complete it last wipe because I didn't have much time. And this
Yeah,
wipe, I think I might give it a go because, yeah, again, I think that it might be quite useful. And something that I've been interested in testing for a while, tons of people telling me that the condor glasses combined with the face shield gives you way more ricochets than you'd think. Tons of people telling me this.
Airwing just
It's
got
all
one.
anecdotal.
He
Yeah,
just
what
got one the
like
other day.
two? Yeah.
Uh, actually, I don't know if he was running 2.
Mm.
I think he was just running a U-lock, so maybe not quite what you're talking about there.
Man loves a U-log. It's true.
I have
But yeah, we'll
another
see.
on that note. You buy an airframe, you buy the visor, you buy the ear cover and jaw cover because it actually you can wear headsets, most headsets, not all of them, but you can wear headsets with that. The downside is, it's a shared armor. So if you get hit in the ear and it loses durability, it's also losing durability for the jaw, right?
Mhm.
But anyways, here's the meta. You airframe, visor, the jaw brace with the ear protection and the sunglasses. So if you get like you just I don't know if how that works. I had a buddy that used to do it and he like sweared by it back when condors weren't in the game, but like, he would get like his visor would take damage and his jaw
Yeah.
what is it called? But that extra piece would also take damage and he would survive even
Chops.
the chops. Yes, thank you, thank you. And yeah, someone's saying maximum ricochet. I mean, it's so cheesy, but that's why I'm gonna try that too. See
That's
how
the
that
thing. It's
works for me.
expensive, but I think it might work. Because you've got class 4 on the top and the nape.
Yeah,
You've then got class 3 with medium ricochet across
something
the
like
eyes
that.
and the jaws. You've then got class 1 with high ricochet underneath that for the eyes.
Mhm.
And then you also have, I think, is it medium ricochet for ears and jaws from the chops again.
Which is class
So
3. Yeah, it's
class
so
3.
silly.
So it's
It's
kind of like
so silly, dude.
nothing is silly in the face of min-maxing, Church. Nothing is silly in the face of that. But that helmet is expensive. But we're not gonna have anything else to spend our money on. So
Yeah.
I want to try it. I've been interested in this for a while. Oh, it's high ricochet. The chops is high ricochet, ears and jaws.
I'm okay, the min-maxer part's not silly. The stacking RNG, which I guess is min-maxing, is silly, dude. Like, you just like, come on, lucky roll. Alright, lucky roll number 2. Lucky roll number 3. Yes.
Exactly. Exactly. And it just gets better. It probably gets better the more that you stack. I don't know exactly how it works in terms of whether it just stacks the ricochets or whether the second ricochet is more likely because the
Yeah.
round has lower energy now. I don't know how that works precisely, but it'll be an interesting
Interesting.
one to try because, as I
For
said, lots
sure.
of people were telling me that, and this wasn't with the multi-ballistic face shield. This was with just other face shields. They were saying having the condors on underneath any other
Mhm.
face shield, people were seeing way more ricochets than they would expect.
Mm.
They were surprised, and tons of people told me. It's when I made the visors video. Tons of people reported this and said, but and this is the thing that I messaged back to quite a few people. It is so hard to test. It's so hard to test. As soon as you don't get the result you're looking for, which is most of the time, the person you're testing with dies. Unless you're using a very specific set of rounds at a specific range, which I guess you could use the new tables to work out when you're not going to kill somebody, which would be kind of interesting way of doing it. A goal nick at 100 meters and do that through the face visor.
Well, see, I wonder if they're both getting flagged. So, like, it treats it as the hitboxes are merged, essentially, is one way to think about it. So when you're hitting the eyes hitbox, you're dealing damage to the visor, and you're also dealing damage to the glasses. Like, it doesn't treat them as layers, it's just one flat layer, so they both get rolled. Does that make sense?
Yeah, maybe. That's such a good point about the hitboxes because there is no physical three-dimensionality to the armor as we know. The hitbox is just the hitbox, irrespective of whether armor is on it or not. Because you can shoot through the side of the face shield, for example, and it won't do anything. If
Mhm.
you shoot somebody in their head, but the face shield's in the way, then it'll hit the face shield. But if you shoot to the side of the face shield, still through the face shield, it does nothing at all. So there's no clipping, so to speak, or hitbox for any of the actual armor. So yeah, those things are, from the game's perspective, layered textures over the skull
Right.
hitbox with PMC, which I believe is very slightly larger than the head, a little bit,
Should be,
but
yeah.
it doesn't feel bad, so that's kind of fine, and it works with helmets and stuff as well, so it's all right. But you do have multiple ricochet check um, on that. I don't know. Yeah, I don't really know how the health works though. That would actually be a really interesting one to test. That would actually be a really interesting one to test. Hmm.
You're
I can have a think
welcome.
about
Future video creator right here. I'll take the check and the PayPal, you know.
that. Absolutely. As long as you do the testing. This is the problem with these things. Is the testing takes forever. It takes forever,
Yeah.
which is why I normally don't do these kind of ones right now because I'm trying to min max my own time to bring stuff that's good value without
Yes.
wasting all of my time and not being able to post stuff.
Yeah.
But in the future, I'm hoping when I get a bit more time, I can do some of these things. But that would be fascinating, and I think that'd be cool. So yeah, maybe just like run it and just see what happens Um, when you
Yeah, I
get
have
to Ragman
to.
4,
Well,
and
I have some Alton visors saved up because there you can. This is the crazy thing. You can't buy the Alton, but you can buy the face shield on the flea market. So they're selling for about 30K, and you can sell them back when they're slightly damaged to Ragman for 26, 27K, I want to say.
that's
So
not too
you're
bad.
losing. Yeah, but it's crazy because it's like you go in a raid, factory, you get shot in the face, you leave the raid. Let me just take this visor off, sell it, get back 98% of what I paid for it, buy a brand new one. Like you don't repair it, you don't if you insure it, you insure for like 22K, but the thing you paid for was 30K.
Yes, it's not worth
It's
it.
it's so weird. It's crazy. But
Yeah, indeed, indeed. Right. Well, I guess we're kind of running long, aren't we? So anything else you want to bring up before we want to close it out? Because I think I'm going to have to finish shortly.
yeah. Thanks everyone for tuning in, hanging out with us. Appreciate it. And seeing a lot of people joining Discord, which is really cool. So if you want to be a part of Discord, we mostly post Tarkov memes and sometimes complain about getting head eyes in the raid, but otherwise, check us out. Links down below in the description of the platform that you're listening to. And with that, catch you guys next week.
Catch you later.